All right. Well, here we are back with another podcast. We have our principal, Tad Theiss, with us. Tad's been the principal, I say, for 600 years, but in actuality, it's what, 30?
500.
500, okay.
1997.
1997. So you make me do math now. 24?
Yep.
Okay. But you've been at the school for longer than that.
Yes, I started as a junior high teacher in 1990.
Okay. All right. And so, my name's Lance. I'm the pastor here at First Baptist Church of Windsor. Actually, we're Windsor Christian Church now. Let's not get it. We'll talk about that in another podcast. But anyway, so Tad's been a friend of mine since I became a Christian when I was 20 years old. And when I came to Christ, Tad was here at the church and was a good friend right off the bat. I realized that I kind of had probably a critical perception of Christians. And you were normal and liked to play poker, even with pennies. We still played some poker, got in trouble for that.
I was very frugal.
Yeah. And I even had a beer with your dad over at your parents' house. I'm like, whoa, Christianity's great. So anyway, it was really helpful to have Tad as I started walking with the Lord. And so Tad we're gonna talk, just kind of walk through what we'll talk about today. Tad's background. I really want church and school families to get to know Tad maybe better than they do. So my goal is to bring some things out and then let him share his testimony about his family, how he became a principal, philosophy of education, managing this COVID craziness, and what he likes to do for fun. So hopefully we'll spend about an hour talking about those things today. So
Great.
We also have a new podcast studio and a new team filming. And so hopefully this goes well. All right. So thanks for being here. Let's start off with your background. So childhood.
Yes. I was born in Weaverville, California, up in the Trinity Alps region. My dad worked as a forester, and after graduating from Berkeley, he worked for a private company up in Weaverville, so that's why my sister and I were born up there.
They have a hospital in Weaverville?
They have a doctor in Weaverville.
Oh, so you're born at the house?
Yes. Nice. My father was also part-time doctor of the town. No, not really. They had a doctor. I don't know if they had much of a hospital. But then we moved to the Santa Clara area, and then the Santa Cruz area, and then up to Eureka, because every 5 or 6 years he would be transferred in his job with the California Department of Forestry.
Okay. And then something happened, right, with the forestry that your dad was kind of frustrated with? Was that environmental? Was your dad in the middle of some of that?
Yes. So my dad,
Can you share that?
Yes. When he was promoted to the regional office in Santa Rosa, it was when environmentalist groups were very prominent, and they would come and actually protest in front of his offices. And I think
the 80s? Is there a year for that?
That was probably 80s, yes.
Okay.
Yes, 80s and 90s. He was going by the law, and he would approve or not approve logging operations based upon how they were treating the land. And if they were meeting the requirements, he would approve that, and the environmentalists didn't want any logging at the time. And also the governor at the time was a Democrat, and the government appointed the head of the Forest Service.
Was it the same governor that became governor again?
I don't remember if it may have been Governor Brown. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Jerry
But
Brown,
his appointee to appease the environmentalists, his appointee to head the forestry department was very much an environmentalist, and so there was friction.
Yeah.
He was attempting to do his job by the law, and he was kind of stymied in doing that. So he eventually retired, but his last years were frustrating because of that.
Okay, yeah. All right, so how did you make it to Windsor? What was the...
So I went to Humboldt State because between my junior and senior year of high school, my family moved up to Eureka. So I was going to high school in beautiful Santa Cruz, trendy Santa Cruz, and then I was planted up between my junior and senior year of high school up in kind of behind the times Eureka.
Okay.
And so that was a bit of a transition. So I graduated from Eureka High School. Didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to go to college. And so the college that's right there is Humboldt State. I went to Humboldt State. And even after starting, I didn't know what major to choose all the way through, into my sophomore year. And then I finally determined.
If you guys knew Tad, like, what college do you think Tad went to? Humboldt State would be
right
50th. I don't know, way down the list.
I was very much a minority up there.
But you were they're the Lumberjacks.
They are the Lumberjacks, yes.
All right.
Yes. And so in my sophomore year, I decided to pursue accounting because I'd always been good in math and good with money. I thought that would be a good fit for me. Mm-hmm. And so I did get my degree in accounting, Bachelor's of Science, and then went to, upon graduation, I actually didn't go to my graduation because I had a job starting before the graduation ceremony. I needed to be there. Mm-hmm. What was interesting is there was a accounting firm in Eureka that a number of us students at Humboldt State that were graduating applied for, and I actually got the position. But I already had a job lined up. And so I asked, could you wait until after summer when my job is done to start me? And they said, no, we want someone to start right away.
Okay.
So you're probably curious as to what this job was. It was camp counselor job. So a lot of people would probably think you're substituting your career, what you studied for a summer camp counseling job at Mount Hermon Christian Conference Center. But I really felt I had taken the job, not knowing if I'd get a career job in the summer, and I felt obligated to honor my commitment. And so I did take that job, really enjoyed it. Then the summer was over, and I went to Los Angeles and got a job in accounting in Los Angeles and worked there through late winter, early spring, and decided I worked as an accountant for a lease and loan company, and I decided I really don't like this work. It wasn't enjoyable to me, and I looked fondly back upon my work with youth as a counselor, but then determined I can't make money doing that. And so after getting out of the accounting job, I was a little bit lost as to what to do, what career path to take. And so my blessed brother paid for me to go to it was a company in San Francisco.
Your family helped you.
Yes, they did help me. Yeah. My brother paid for me to go to this organization in San Francisco that thoroughly tested you on your abilities and likes and dislikes. And there were a number of things that came up.
So your brother got you tested?
Yes, I got tested.
Yes.
I just barely passed. But some of the things that came up, lawyer was something that they said I would be good at.
Okay.
But I didn't want to do that. Another thing was military officer. And so I thought that sounded great. And so very soon after that, I went to, I think, the naval base in Oakland, California. I remember staying with my grandparents who lived in Oakland to go apply for officer candidate school. And so I did, and they accepted me. I did well enough on the tests. They said they wanted me in right away. And usually they give you a period of time before you have to go. So I did that, and I went to Newport, Rhode Island, where the Naval Officer Candidate School was. And lo and behold, I didn't like that either. It was just a foreign culture to me. I wasn't prepared for it. I decided that after a time I didn't want to be there.
Were you too skinny?
No, not too skinny. Right. I was fine. It was actually it wasn't them kicking me out. It was me deciding I didn't want to be there, and I had to go up the chain of command to the base captain. Every time they said, "No, you need to stay. You need to be here." And no, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
And so finally, I was out of that and then came home. And then thinking about it further, I thought, I've always liked working with children. And so I decided to apply to Sonoma State for my teaching credential and was accepted. And went through another very conservative college, like Humboldt State, Sonoma State.
Yeah, great.
Being sarcastic. And got my teaching credential. And upon graduation, I did some substitute teaching because I graduated mid-school year. And then I had a friend in men's Bible study fellowship. During this time, I was working as an accountant night auditor at what was then the Sheraton Round Bar Inn. Parts of it have burned up since. So,
night auditor.
Night auditor, yes. So I did use my accounting skills to take care of myself.
Okay. What does a night auditor do? Do you work
Not
at
a
night?
whole lot. There's people that check in very late.
Okay.
And so you do that. But you reconcile the books for the day.
Okay.
The restaurant sends in forms that you have to reconcile the accounts there, and other things.
What was the name of that restaurant? Equus.
No, Equus was down below us. I think it was just the Sheraton Round Barn Inn restaurant.
Okay.
But it was there was a lot of free time to study while I was working in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And so I got my teaching credential. I was in men's Bible study fellowship at the time. And a gentleman named Eric Peterson, a friend of mine that went to church here at the time, said, hey, they're looking for a teacher at Windsor Christian Academy. I think it was called Windsor Christian School at the time.
Okay.
Or First Baptist School. And so I came and applied with Scott Tolson. He hired me as the one and only junior high teacher, which means I had 7th and 8th graders, and I had to teach all subjects, and including things like enrichment courses, PE. We just
did the whole thing.
Did the whole thing.
Wow.
And I really enjoyed it. It wasn't lucrative financially as my previous jobs, but I really enjoyed working with the kids. So much so I was single at the time, and I liked to do things outside of school with my students. We would do overnighters here. In the summer, we'd do things like go and play tennis together up in Healdsburg. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, cool. And then how did that transition then into becoming the principal?
Well, this was an amazing thing that happened. I realized after a couple years that what I was making, I think I was dating a young lady at the time, what I was making here as a teacher would never be enough for me to start a family, get married and start a family, be a provider.
It was like 17,000?
I think it started out at like 13,000.
13,000, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
A good resource for that information would be Cheryl Williams, because she was here before I was. And I had determined that I would have a conversation with Scott Tolson to let him know that I wouldn't be returning to school, and I was going to pursue a job in the public school sector, because they pay more with benefits. And I was planning on talking to him at a certain time. He had no knowledge of this, what I was thinking. I hadn't told him or any of the other staff. I had been praying about it, and we were at some outside of the school, like a spelling bee or something like that, and I was sitting with him. We were watching the students, our students compete, and he asks me, what would you think about working through the summer as a vice principal with me, and we can pay you more? I thought, that's God. And so I did take the job, and it was enough to not start a family, and I didn't start a family until much later anyway. Then I did that. I was a combination of a junior high teacher and vice principal. I worked year-round for the school.
What was the biggest, because you were a teacher, then you got onto the administrative side. Was there anything that was like, whoa, I didn't know things worked like this? Or was there anything that surprised you in that?
No, I don't remember being surprised. I used a lot of my former education. I remember some of the things I was made responsible for as vice principal was curriculum, ordering, purchasing, doing inventory when it came in. So nothing really stymied me in that. I think I've always been comfortable in interacting with students, even when it came to discipline, being reasonable with them, but definitely not soft, because I am very justice-minded.
We'll get into that.
Fairness-minded.
A little bit, yeah. Okay.
So,
I mean, you had to work over the summer.
yes.
That's different.
Yeah, that was different. But again, I was single at the time and
Yeah.
didn't mind. I didn't have a whole lot of other responsibilities.
Yeah. Okay. So then that still kind of getting to the principal piece. So what happened from there?
So what happened from there is I did that for a couple years, and Scott Tolson felt pulled between the church and the school. It was too much for him to be the associate pastor here and the principal at the same time. So he opted to take the easier route and become the associate pastor and not the principal.
Right. Yes. Smart.
I had to throw that in.
Yes. Was the school growing? Like, what was the pressure?
Yeah, it was slowly growing over time.
You were adding new
I remember,
programs too, right?
I hope I'm not speaking out of turn for Scott, but I remember him telling me one of the things that really bothered him was knowing that he would have to deal with parents on an ongoing basis when things happened, and that was just really, I got to deal with this Monday. This parent needs to talk to me about this, and they're upset. I remember him saying that was a big frustration. That's a big part of the job. So I love that part of the job. I love dealing with frustrated people. I like it when they get angry at me.
You like telling people your kids are sinners.
So, yeah.
Like, get used to it. Yeah.
So it wasn't, I didn't immediately transfer into the principal's position when he vacated it to be associate pastor full time. A gentleman named Ron Milburn with more experience was hired. But for a variety of reasons, he was here for, I think, a couple years. And then I was asked to be the principal of the school in 1997, which was good timing for me because that's when I married my wife, Linnea. And
same year.
Yeah, the principal's position, more income, and I was able to provide for my family.
Testimony. How'd you come to Christ?
My parents, I would say, were exceptional in living out their Christian faith and expecting their children to respect the Lord. And it wasn't difficult for any of us, I think I can speak for my brother and sister, to respect the Lord because of the example of our parents, to love the Lord. And I get a little bit emotional because I'm very grateful for the family that God gave me.
Yeah.
My brother also was a real good example to me. I remember as an
older brother.
He loved the Lord. He read his Bible every day. And I remember he got a new leather-bound Bible when he was baptized. And I was a big reader. I loved books. And I thought, I'm going to get baptized because I want a Bible like that. So I remember doing the counseling with the pastor at the church at the time. And he said, that shouldn't be your main reason for being baptized. And so I was a Christian at the time. But I think he was worried that I just wanted the book, the Bible, and that I didn't have faith. But I did. I thought that was just kind of funny that was the reason I wanted that leather-bound Bible like my brother got. And so, again, I was a Christian before that point in time. Went through with believer's baptism sometime in my junior high years, probably 13 years old. But I think I probably became a Christian about age 7 or 8. There was a time between my freshman and sophomore year of high school I did Teen Missions International, and that was a period of time where I was not secure in my faith. I felt like I was concerned that it didn't take, and that what if I'm wrong in what I've done? I don't want to miss going to heaven. And so that was when I was doing teen missions over that summer. That was a time of struggle, but I went to God's Word and I got reassured that it's through faith in Christ alone that one is saved. It's not a matter of doing certain things. And so from that point forward, I've never really struggled with my faith. That was my time of struggle.
Let's dig into your emotions a little bit.
They're there. They're buried deep.
We joked before we started, I'm going to make you cry, Tad. And I'm like, he'll never cry. Like, and then he started crying. So let's get into that a little bit. Like, so what about, is it something that you get emotional now as a parent, or do you see the difficulty of raising children and now you kind of realize more what your parents did for you? Like, what tugs at your heartstrings there? Or just a genuine thankfulness?
I'm just thankful.
Yeah.
And it wasn't having my own children that caused me to appreciate my parents more. I appreciated them long before I had children of my own. But speaking of children, my mom says, and I don't remember this, but she said, from early on, I always wanted to have children, even more so than I wanted to get married. But one should come before the other.
Yes, that's right.
And that's true. I've always enjoyed children, and so I'm very thankful that I have the children that I have.
Yeah. You want to talk about them a little bit?
Yeah. They're
Talon and Kira?
They are a blessing.
Talon's a senior.
He's a senior
Windsor High School.
At Windsor High School. And I often say he's more like his Uncle Jim than he is like his dad.
Okay.
And that's a compliment. He's just a sweet-hearted young man. My daughter's more like me. That's why I'm crying. I'm sorry, Kira. No,
you're getting soft, Tad, in your old age, buddy. Dang.
I really, my daughter is truly like her dad. And there's a story when she was in kindergarten. There was a girl in her class that was a year older than the rest and bigger than the rest. And this girl would kind of throw her weight around, cut in the lunch line. We had monkey bars at the time that were very popular, and she would cut in front of everybody. And my daughter was the one that I had to discipline a couple times because she got in physical fights with this girl. She was willing to fight above her weight class. and she did good.
She did good, all right.
She did good, but she's very much like her father. She's very justice-oriented. And if, Kira, you're listening to this right now and you're thinking, wow, Talon's like Uncle Jim and I'm like you, you should know that when Talon was born, I don't believe I cried, but when Kira was born.
Yeah.
Something about having a daughter.
Yeah. Daughters are sweet, precious. You fainted with Talon's birth.
Oh, this is a good story. And I don't know if I should share this story. But I think you
could share it in such a way that people would know.
Yes, I'll try to be delicate.
On the 8th day.
I'll try to be delicate, unlike the doctor.
Yes.
So, my son was born. There's a certain operation that often happens with male children.
Yes.
They wanted to know if I wanted to be there. And I said, certainly, I want to be there. I want to, when this is taking place. And so I went, and
I don't think I was there with Gabe. I don't even know if they gave me an option, but I'm like, yeah, you deal with that.
Well, I was going to say, if Gabe is younger than Talon, you probably weren't allowed to be there with Gabe because of the policy they set after what happened with me.
They said
but Gabe is older, so
yeah, the Tad policy.
The Tad policy. So I remember the doctor saying, "There's not going to be a lot of blood, and there's not going to be a lot of pain. It's going to be pretty quick." It was not that, and there was blood. And my child was screaming, and the next thing I know, I'm looking up at a nurse, and "Are you okay? Are you okay?" So I had fainted. One and only time in my life that I had fainted.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of humorous because I came back. Talon and I both came back to Linnea, but I was the one that was in the wheelchair coming back. So anyway.
That's a good story. Sorry, Talon. That'll stay with you for a while. So let's see. So we talked about you becoming a principal. Let's get into school, philosophy of education. What do you think school should be about? What do you love about it?
Our school, a Christian school, should be about the whole child, not just helping them academically to grow with the basic subject matter. We want to meet the needs of the whole child, and in particular the spiritual needs. That's what's most important. That's what lasts for eternity. And so it's always been a strong desire of mine, a requirement to hire staff that love the Lord and are not just Christian individuals, but mature Christian individuals that view this job as a wonderful ministry. They have children in their class every day of the school week for most of the school year. What an opportunity to share God's word with them, to meet them when they're going through difficult times and encourage them, and yes, even to discipline them when they're exhibiting behavior that's not appropriate and sin that's disappointing to their Lord. Having that opportunity to talk them through that and help them understand that they are sinners and what they need to do to make things right, confess their sin to God, and then make things right to the person that they may have offended. So the spiritual component is really important, and of course I understand why in public schools they can't do that, or they don't do that as forthrightly as we do here at Windsor Christian Academy. So that being said, I really want our students to be prepared to be productive members of society. So education is important, work ethic is important. We want them to be challenged so that they can face the challenges of life. We don't want to make things too easy for them. That's not going to help them.
Traditional academics. So typically I would have some crazy ideas like, Tad, we should do this curriculum or that, or put this before the kids. And you're like, well, where are we going to fit that in with math and English and history?
Right.
So I think you just see it as there's only so many hours in a school day. We're teaching the traditional or fundamental aspects of academics. So
yeah, it's a tough balance. In fact, I was having a conversation with our Jamie Green, our teacher that's leading the DC trip, and we were talking about the many fundraisers they're doing. And I said, one of the things that we need to be careful of is, yes, the Washington, D.C. trip is the highlight of the 8th grade year. It might even be considered the highlight of this student's entire tenure here at Windsor Christian Academy. They look forward to the Washington, D.C. trip. But we can't lose sight of the need for those 8th grade students to get core academics. And if you're drawing them out of class constantly for various fundraisers, then that's detrimental to their education. So we were talking about the fundraisers that are coming up in the near future, and there was a lot of them. I said, I would suggest you get rid of one of those, because one of the things these fundraisers do is it takes the kids away from the academics. Of course, someone might say, yes, but it teaches them other things as well, and that's true. But there's a balance.
Yeah, yeah, good. So shirt this year is justice. I've been here with Tad 15 years, and probably you've wanted justice.
I've wanted justice for a long time.
Which could be taken differently.
And I didn't get justice.
He didn't get justice this year.
Yeah.
So talk to me about your love of justice.
I think it's, like I said with my daughter, I think it's just part of my makeup, part of the way God made me. I just feel strongly. I feel that we serve a just God. I feel people, when they make decisions, they should be rewarded for wise decisions, and there should be consequences for foolish decisions. And I do understand that sometimes mercy needs to play a part, but I think in our culture generally, maybe we err too often on the side of mercy and overlook justice. And when someone's getting justice, let's say it's a student that's getting justice, the idea is through that discipline, they learn from it and don't make that same foolish decision again. And then they make a wise decision, and there's blessings in their lives as a result.
Yeah, we probably balance each other out pretty good. So Micah 6:8, right? Do justice, love mercy, walk humbly with God. Probably as a pastor, I tend more on the mercy side of things. You're more as a school principal, justice side. So I think together we've kind of hit a good balance there. So good. So one of the things with schools around Sonoma County anyway is a lot of the big Christian schools have closed down, through the last decade. And so at one point we were I think there was Harvest Christian down in Petaluma, and there was a small little school out in Sebastopol. But other than that, we were kind of the last larger traditional Christian school north of Petaluma. So anything you think that we did right? I mean, obviously it's God's grace, but is there things you can look back and go, here's where I think what helped us stay the course, stay viable, and stay as a school?
Right. I have always been very frugal when it comes to monetary things, and sometimes people get frustrated with me because I want to, in a sense, save for a rainy day. I don't want to overextend financially on things, and I think a lot of our fellow Christian schools that do run into trouble don't have that outlook. They take risks, and sometimes those risks don't pay off. So I think just being very careful with money, wise with money.
And you've done a good job of, we don't do a lot of discounts. Like what people pay is actually what it costs to run a Christian school. And so we don't charge a lot, like compared to other private schools, but we don't give a lot of discounts either. So I think some of the Christian schools may have run into trouble with trying to help people. Word gets out, hey, we got this amount, you should ask for this amount, and I think it can get kind of snowball. Right. So I think you've done a good job of just saying, this is what it costs, this is what the needs are, and we're a good, affordable school. I think it's a good value. But yeah, I think that's helped, I also think too, some of the schools that I saw close down were just going through a lot of transition with leadership, like a new principal every 2 or 3 years. I think that's hard on the staff, hard on parents, like new philosophies coming in constantly. So I think your longevity has been a key part of that as well. Just a steady leadership through it all. So
thank you.
Yeah, it's cool. Good. Back to the traditional academics and just the love of seeing kids learn about the Lord. And I just look at like Jesus's, the Great Commission, go and make disciples, teaching them all that I have commanded you. And I feel like the school setting is like a great opportunity for that, right? We're just making disciples. We're just trying to do what the Lord says to do. I remember working down at Grace Community, and I was vice principal down there, and the youth pastors were like, man, we're kind of envious because you get to be with the kids 5 days a week. We only get them on Wednesday night and Sunday, 2 hours a week. Yeah. And I kind of thought about that, and I go, yeah, the school does provide just a really cool opportunity to really invest in kids' lives and be a big part of that. So it's great.
Yes.
I love Christian school. I think it's awesome. I never went to Christian school, growing up. I got kicked out of all of them. No. So, all right. Well, let's talk about managing COVID. The last couple of years have been challenging. Schools have had a ton of different requirements. So just kind of if you want to talk through some things that have kind of helped you and led you through this challenging season here.
Sure. I should probably give a brief history of COVID at Windsor Christian Academy or COVID at schools in our community.
Yeah.
Our state, for that matter. We looked like we were going to have great enrollment coming into the 2020-2021 school year.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
not this year,
but the previous school year. Mm-hmm. But when word got out, and it was our intent to have students on campus. But if you recall, in that summer of 2020, the rule came down that you could not have on-campus instruction. Mm-hmm. Students could not be on campus. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those people that were on our rolls, and we were set to instruct in the fall of 2020, they just, in a sense, abandoned ship. Mm-hmm. I can understand it. They're paying a lot of money for tuition, and their child is at home learning. Mm-hmm. I could understand why they all of a sudden became disenchanted with that. But it turns out that we were one of only a few schools that were able, for the vast majority of the school year, to have students on campus. And it was, in a sense, it was a blessing that we lost some students because we were able to have students on campus because of what was called the Cohort Policy, where you could have 14 students in a class with one adult, and adults couldn't move from group to group. Mm-hmm. Because our enrollment had dropped, we were able to do that. We were able to have cohorts across the campus. Mm-hmm. Now, another thing came up early on, and we started the year with just cohorts in the younger grades, kindergarten, first and second.
Right. They allowed, 25%?
They said in this cohort allowance that the state gave, the governor gave, they said you couldn't have more than 25%, I think it was, of your students on campus. Mm-hmm. So pick the cohorts you want. Mm-hmm. So we picked the younger grades. We felt it was more important for those young students to be on campus.
It was the most disadvantaged or something like that, students.
Yes.
Yeah.
The way it was written, I think the state was looking to help special education students. Mm-hmm. But we don't have special education classes here, so we chose the younger grades.
Yeah.
What happened was some schools in Southern California got some great legal advice, and what it was this: that requirement for 25% or less of your student body, that's the maximum that can be on campus, was written in the frequently asked questions portion of what Governor Newsom sent out. It wasn't in the body of what was written on cohorts.
Okay.
And so that was taken to court. There was no decision made on it, but the state of California, the governor's office, said, we will allow for schools to basically disregard that 25% or less of your student body on campus. Mm-hmm. And so we put cohorts in all of our classes. Mm-hmm. The only exception was the junior high classes, because our junior hires moved from
class to
class. And with the cohort system, only one adult could be with one group of kids. Mm-hmm. So they did their classes without their homeroom teacher in the morning on Google Classroom, right? And then they came in the afternoon.
Yeah.
But things changed as the year went on, and we could then bring them all back. And I know the public schools in our area didn't get kids back to school until like the last month of school, and it was.
And we got some pressure, right? I remember Press Democrat wrote an article about us. I felt bad because I was kind of pushing Tad to do this, and then you got your name in the Press Democrat, and
we were allowed to do it over the. I guess it would be the 2020 Christmas break. The Press Democrat decided to make an example of Windsor Christian Academy, and said that we were doing cohorts across the school. This was right after we found out that we could legally do it. But they even interviewed Steve Harrington, Sonoma County Superintendent of Schools, and he said that he was definitely not a fan of what we were doing, but said something about he couldn't do anything to enforce.
We're not a policing agency, right? I think is what he. But they were a policing agency when we tried to start earlier. They told us no.
Oh yeah, I dealt with someone from the town of Windsor. A sheriff's deputy came in and talked to me about students on our campus, and there was Sonoma County Office of Education.
3 different agencies. Called you.
Yep.
So we realized then that they weren't on the same page. Because why would they all need to call?
I was gracious with the first 2, but that last call from the town of Windsor, at the end of the conversation, I had to apologize to the lady for. I was very frustrated. Because they were coming at us, and we weren't doing anything wrong.
I remember we had James Gore here to do a podcast with them, and we were just getting our cohorts going too. And I remember some of the school was nervous that James Gore is going to be here. He's our supervisor up here, and so we were going to have him come through the back door, I think, and kind of go right up to our podcast studio. And he came through the front door, and he brought his daughter and kids here, and he was really impressed. He's like, "Wow, this is cool that you guys were able to do this and do it safely and smart." And so it was kind of neat it didn't go the way we were thinking, but I think it was helpful just that the staff knew too that we were doing things good. We were working hard at it, but we had some people that weren't too happy with us either. Future challenges. So what are we at 2022? Omicron stage. Some people are vaccinated, some aren't. Some, children vaccines, masks. What are some challenges you see facing schools moving forward?
Right. Probably the thing that concerns our parents the most, and those that are coming to check our school out, is the child vaccination requirements that are on the horizon that Governor Newsom would like to have starting in the summer, but for practical purposes, it would be our fall of 2022. And that right now is really up in the air. Our school is part of the Association of Christian Schools International, and they have a relationship with law firms. I think one is called the Pacific Justice Institute, and they're looking for ways legally around that, a personal belief exemption and so forth. But as I understand it, if the state legislature passes a law that says that the COVID vaccine for children is required like any other of the other immunizations that are required for students coming into kindergarten, then it makes it very difficult for anybody to get an exemption. But we're not there yet. So
some schools don't require those immunizations. We do, right? For kindergarten?
Legally, all schools.
Okay.
Public and private.
Okay.
There might be some gray areas if it's a school that's like a homeschool consortium and they meet very sporadically as opposed to on a 5-day-a-week basis like we do. There might be some exceptions there, maybe not.
Okay.
But no, as we are structured. Even though we're a private school, we have to abide by those laws, just like we have to abide by the mandate for masking indoors.
Mm-hmm.
When we do have freedom, when it's a recommendation, we usually leave that up to parents to decide on behalf of their children. For example, it's required that our students wear masks indoors, and so it's mandated. We have to obey the law, so we do that. But it's only recommended that they wear them outside at this point in time. It's been that way for a while. And so most of our students choose not to wear their masks outdoors. Those that want to, they're free to do so. And our parents seem to be very happy with that. I don't get complaints on either end. So
yeah, good. What do you like to do for fun? What is Tad your like full
That's
name, or is it Thaddeus? Tad.
yeah,
It's just Tad.
Yeah, Tad, just plain Tad.
Yeah.
My parents told me that they gave me that name because they thought it would be a name that no one could make fun of. But of course, tadpole, things like that. So it didn't work. I love to run. I especially like to run in the hills of Cloverdale, or any hills for that matter. I like off-road running. I started out as a road runner only, but found it more enjoyable to be out in God's creation. I like to bike ride, road bike, mountain bike. Love to spend time with my kids. I'm constantly asking them, hey, what do you want to do? And they oftentimes now say, no, I'm fine, just doing okay, but I'm doing my part. But occasionally we'll have fun doing different stuff.
Good. All right. Well, I think it's good, Tad. I'm glad we could do this, and hopefully people get to know you a little better. And really appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right. It's a wrap.